Have you ever asked a really powerful AI a question that seems, pretty straightforward, but the answer you get back is just a little off? Like it started out strong but got lost somewhere along the way? Well, today we are going to unpack that exact puzzle. Why these incredible tools sometimes get basic logic completely wrong.
And I bet you felt this, right? It's almost like the AI has a really short attention span. You give it a problem with a few steps, and by the end of its own explanation, it seems like it's totally forgotten what you asked in the first place.
Okay, so check this out. Look at this sentence. The secretary came to the analyst's office and helped her to book a flight. Now, who was helped? For us, it's instant, right? The analyst. But a typical large language model might actually get this wrong and say it was the secretary. It just gets confused about who her is referring to.
And here's the thing, this isn't just some random glitch. It's a specific and actually pretty common problem that researchers call attention misalignment. So in the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly what that means and look at a brilliant new technique that's designed to help these AIs keep their focus and, well, stay on track. All right, let's dive into the first piece to this puzzle, how these models lose focus and end up making these simple mistakes. And it all comes down to this hidden challenge of long reasoning chains.
So what in the world is attention misalignment? Well, it's basically what happens when an AI's own thought process gets so long and complicated that the original question, the whole point of the exercise, gets buried deeper and deeper. Here's an analogy. Imagine you're following a super long recipe. You get so caught up in chopping the onions and mixing the flour and all these little steps that you completely forget you were supposed to preheat the oven an hour ago. That's kind of what's happening inside the AI.
And you can see exactly how it happens right here. The AI gets the question. Great. Then it thinks about step 1. Then it adds step 2 to its own internal context. Then step 3. By the time it gets to, say, step 4, the original goal is way back in its memory, buried under all these other thoughts. It gets harder and harder to remember the main point. So the big question is, how do you fix this? How do you give an AI a better attention span? Well, let's meet the hero of our story today, a really clever new technique called self-anchor. The researchers from Purdue University who developed it call it a novel pipeline that leverages the inherent structure of reasoning to steer LLM attention. Now that might sound a little academic, but the keywords to focus on there are structure and steer. It's all about giving the AI a better map so it doesn't get lost on its own journey. The strategy is actually beautifully simple, and it has two main parts. First, it forces the AI to break down the problem into a clear step-by-step plan before it does anything else. And second, and this is the magic part, it anchors the AI's attention to two things at all times: the main overall goal and the one specific step it's working on right now. It's kind of like giving the AI a smart sticky note that always shows goal, bake a cake, and current step, add the eggs. It just can't forget.
So what does this actually look like in action? Let's go back to that tricky sentence from the beginning, the one about the secretary and the analyst, and see how this plays out.
Okay, on the left, you've got the standard model. It gets confused, right? It makes a bad assumption that her must refer to the first person mentioned, the secretary. And boom, wrong answer. But now look at the right. The model using self-anchor is anchored to the goal. It correctly identifies that her refers to the analyst because she's in her own office. And that leads it straight to the right conclusion. It's such a small shift in focus, but it has a massive impact on the result.
All right, one example is great, but does this technique actually hold up in the real world? Well, to find out, the researchers really put self-anchor through its paces. They tested it across 6 different, really complex reasoning benchmarks. We're talking math problems, common sense questions, and tricky logic puzzles. And the results? The crucial point is that it works, and it works really, really well. Across all of those tough tests, self-anchor delivered an average accuracy improvement of over 5.4% compared to other leading methods. And that's not just a tiny little bump, that is a consistent and a really significant boost in performance.
And this chart really shows you just how powerful this simple technique can be. So look at this. This is data from a grade school math test. Your standard AI gets about a 75% right. A specialized model, one that's been painstakingly trained just for reasoning, does better, at about 81%. But then you take that standard model and just add the self-anchor technique, and its score jumps all the way to 88%. It's actually beating the specialist model. That's just incredible.
So let's pull back for a second and look at the bigger picture here, because this is about more than just getting better answers. It's about getting smarter AI, but without the insane cost and effort. You know, right now, there are basically two ways to make AI better at reasoning. On one hand, you can build these specialized thinking models, which requires hugely expensive and time-consuming retraining. But on the other hand, you have self-anchor, a lightweight, clever prompting method that works on the models we already have, right out of the box. It's like a smart software update, not a total hardware overhaul.
So, if we boil it all down, what are the big takeaways here? Well, with self-anchor, we get more reliable AI reasoning, especially on complex stuff. It works on existing models, so no need for that costly retraining. It's a really lightweight and efficient solution. And, as we saw, it helps standard models close that performance gap with their much more expensive, fine-tuned cousins.
And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. We're not just making AI better at answering quiz questions here. We're teaching it a fundamental skill, how to focus, how to hold a coherent thought from beginning to end. And if an AI can truly learn how to pay attention, well, it really makes you wonder what huge, complex problems are now just a little bit closer to being solved. Thanks for tuning in.